Hi, Nishamni. I'm here to show you a little bit about quiz banks today. We had a recent training in EEI 2, and one of the suggestions I gave was using quiz banks, not quizzes. And in this tutorial, I want to show you where to find that information. So we're here on the professional development website for 2122. And when I want something related to Canvas, I will click on this Canvas icon here. And now what I'm in is all of my tutorials for Canvas. If you're looking for the bare basics of Canvas, click this up here for Canvas for Beginners. It takes you to my modules. Otherwise, you have a little bit more advanced material below in these tabs. And as you scroll down, you can see that these tabs have different sections to them. When you click on the tab, you get a different tutorial. When you scroll all the way down, because today we're looking for quiz banks, it's the last set of tabs and it's within here. And you would just click right in here on quiz banks to find the tutorial that we're going to go through today, which is all about using quiz banks. So there are several reasons why I suggest that you use quiz banks and not quizzes. So let's just go into those things so you can make the decision for yourself. Now, before you can decide if you like this idea, you have to know how to do it. So the very first step is going into quizzes as you always would to make a quiz. So we would click on quizzes. And then in the top right-hand corner, there was always that button there that says add quizzes or plus quiz. Instead of clicking this blue button, I want you to click where the snowman is, these three dots. And that is going to bring up this blue box here that says manage question banks. And you're going to click into that. Once you do that, you can add a question bank by obviously adding your question bank, and it's just going to ask you for the name of your question bank to get started. I suggest you name this something relative to your topic. For example, the name of the quiz, because the idea down the road is to take small quizzes to make a larger assessment. And you can select certain questions from this quiz and all your quizzes to make a larger assessment. So I recommend naming this something related to the quiz that you want to make. Now, why, right? Why am I going to take this extra step? Because it is an extra step to make this in quiz banks and then to create the quiz and select the questions. It's an extra step for sure. Now, what I've seen a lot of recently is people getting locked out of an assessment because the marking period is closed and you want to reuse it. I also just pointed out that you can make a summative assessment from smaller quizzes. You can differentiate your quiz for special needs students. You can create different tests for students to minimize cheating. For example, if you have a quiz bank of 20 questions, you can select it so Canvas picks 10 or 15 of those questions. You can also have it select them in random order. So you can do these custom features using quiz banks. And these things are limited if you just choose quizzes. So what I want you to do is I want you to invite me to your classroom or your prep period, whatever that may be, and I can show you how to do this if my tutorial is not helpful enough. The last part of this tutorial is just to show you how it's done in someone's class. So I went into someone's class and I went to quizzes. So first thing I did was I clicked on quizzes right here and it took me right here. And what I'm looking at is that this teacher created something called Question Bank, and I can see that they have 184 questions in there. And then I see they have unfiled questions. Now, if you've never used this feature, it's likely that you just have this thing right here called unfiled questions. And if I just went one step backwards, I'm going to show you that this teacher has done an amazing job of making lots and lots of assessments for her class in Canvas. Now, I'm going to go one step further. Remember, we're going to try to make question banks out of all these things so they can be reused later. So when you click on quizzes, this is what will pop up. Instead of clicking plus quiz or add quiz, I'm going to click manage question banks. And now that I have question bank and unfiled questions, I have two choices. One, I can hit add question bank. And when I'm doing that, remember I told you to go ahead and name your question banks what you would name your quizzes so you can easily reference them when you're looking for it. But maybe that doesn't make sense to you. Maybe it's going to be you're going to name your question banks after your sections in your chapter. Whatever it may be, you have an organizational system, make sure you name it something that'll help you access it later. Okay, so I'm going to go into these unfiled questions and show you how most of you will be creating question banks. So when I click on an unfiled question, and the same would go for the one she has above there, this is a question about matter, and I can see that I am going to click right here, move question and copy to another bank. When I click on this, it's going to give me this option, and the option is, do I want to put it into question bank, which is a bank I've already created, or do I want to create a new question bank? I'm going to create a new question bank. Now this option down here says keep a copy in this question bank as well. I generally will turn that off. I generally unclick that because I want to remove it from my unfiled questions. So I don't have it in two different places. So I removed the feature where it says keep a copy in this unfiled bank, and I am creating a bank called Matter. And any questions I have for my Matter quiz would go right here so I can access it later. And now that I'm doing that, here we go, move copy question. That one is now gone, and I would continue with this process. And now that I've created that, here we go. And now look, Matter is an option for one of the banks that I can create. And I'll move that one there as well. You've now filed 2 questions in your Matter bank. And I want to show you the progress that you've made. So I'm going to go up top here and I'm going to click on question banks. The reason I did that is just to show you that this is where your banks now live. Here's your Matter bank. When I went in there, this teacher already had something called question bank that they created, and they had the unfiled questions, which Canvas creates for you if you don't use a question bank. Remember, every question you created in a quiz automatically goes into this thing called unfiled questions. So at this point, for most of us, it's just a matter of moving it from unfiled questions into the new question banks that you create. Now, the last thing you'd want to do is, all right, fine, I made a question bank. How do I make a quiz from a question bank? Now, in order to do that, you're going to go through your normal process. So what I'm going to do is I am going to click on quizzes, because this is normally how you would go in to make a quiz. And then I'm going to hit create a quiz, right? This is the normal process now. It's all about where you create your questions. So now that here's my unnamed quiz. I'm going to name my quiz something, and this might be my Matter quiz. And once I name it, I have to go through here and select my options down here. Remember, everyone, we need a due date if we want it to sync to Canvas. So I'm going to create a due date. The due date has to be a weekday, cannot be a holiday, cannot be a weekend. And now I'm going to move over to my questions. All right, this is where it happens. This is where question banks are used. So what we're going to do is right here, your normal procedure is to add a new question. Instead, what we're going to do is we're going to find a question. So look what I did. When I click find question and I select my Matter bank, I can select what questions I want for this quiz. And once I select my questions, I have to click add questions. And there they are, they pop right up. And now I'll add some more questions by finding those questions first. I'll go into our question bank. Our question bank was that file that our teacher made on her own. And I'm gonna go down to the bottom, add those questions. Now there are some more features that I could show you on how to randomize your questions, or have it so you have maybe 10 questions in a bank and then you only pull selected questions. But I'd rather save that for another tutorial. And remember, the point of this was that you can quickly and easily create a new quiz by pulling questions from your question bank. And this will avoid us ever being locked out of an old quiz, or our students who need a differentiated quiz having an issue creating one for them. You could also be creating larger assessments from a group of smaller quizzes you created over the marking period. There's lots of advantages to using quiz banks, not just quizzes. Okay, so remember, if you need anything, if this tutorial is not helpful enough, please contact me. I would love to come to you during your off period or whatever time works for you, and I can show you how to use this in person. All right, thanks again for watching, and I hope it was helpful.